Welcome to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Portland District, virtual scoping meeting for the environmental impact statement for the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project. Please note this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted to the Corps' website. Today's scoping meeting is an important part of the Corps' evaluation of this project, and we value the public's input. Thank you for your interest in the project and for taking the time to attend and participate in today's meeting. My name is Joe Brock, and I'm a National Environmental Policy Act Specialist in our regulatory program. I'm also the primary point of contact for the Environmental Impact Statement. This meeting will provide information on the proposed project, on some of the coordination history with the Corps, roles and responsibilities, and information on the National Environmental Policy Act, and on the scoping process. There will also be a presentation by the applicant. Following the presentations, we will accept and record oral comments at this meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to identify some of the terms you are likely to hear. This meeting is being conducted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Portland District, or Corps. You may also see the Corps written as USACE or USACE. The applicant is Cascade Renewable Transmission, LLC, referred to as the applicant or Cascade for short. The project is called the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project, and we may abbreviate this as CRT project. NEPA means the National Environmental Policy Act, and EIS means an Environmental Impact Statement. The Cascade Renewable Transmission Project is a proposal to construct and operate an electrical transmission line from the Dalles to Portland in Oregon. The proposal includes work in uplands, in and under the Columbia River, and under Oregon Slough, Columbia Slough, and the Willamette River. The proposed transmission line would interconnect with the existing Bonneville Power Administration Big Eddy substation located in the Dalles and the existing Portland General Electric Harborton substation in Portland. The proposed alignment would be located in Wasco, Hood River, and Multnomah counties in Oregon, and Klickitat, Skamania, and Clark counties in Washington. The proposed transmission line is a 12-inch cable bundle consisting of two 6-inch diameter transmission lines and two 1-inch diameter fiber optic cables. The cable bundle would be installed under the bed of the Columbia River and other waterways. The transmission line would be buried underground in uplands and buried 10 to 15 feet below the bottom of the Columbia River. In areas where the transmission line would be buried less than 5 feet in the Columbia River due to site constraints, cable protection using riprap or articulated concrete would be installed. The proposed length of cable protection is 2.4 miles. The applicant will provide additional information on the proposed project and construction methods in their presentation. So why is the Army Corps of Engineers involved with a power line project? Cascade Renewable Transmission, LLC has requested a Department of the Army permission and permit from the Corps. The project would also require a real estate action by the Corps for portions of the project that would occur on Corps fee-owned lands. For today's meeting, we will focus on the requirements for a Department of the Army permit and permission. Under Section 14 of the Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899, permission is required from the Corps to make alterations to, or temporarily or permanently occupy, or use any Army Corps of Engineers federally authorized civil works project. We refer to this program as Section 408 based on the section number in the U.S. Code. An alteration is defined as any action that builds upon, alters, improves, moves, occupies, or otherwise affects the usefulness or the structural or ecological integrity of a Corps federally authorized project. The proposed transmission line would cross a Corps levee in the Dalles, and that levee is a federally authorized project. The transmission line is proposed to be constructed adjacent to, in, and under the Federal Navigation Channel in the Columbia River and Willamette River and under other auxiliary navigation channels. The Federal Navigation Channel in the Columbia River between Vancouver, Washington, and the Dalles, Oregon, includes a deep draft navigation channel and pile dike structures. The Federal Navigation Channel is authorized to 27 feet deep, but is currently maintained to 17 feet deep, which is considered adequate for current users, which is primarily tug and barge traffic. The Corps will evaluate the project and determine whether to authorize the project under Section 408. The proposed project would also require a Department of the Army permit. Under Section 10 of the Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899, a permit is required for work in or affecting navigable waters of the United States. The proposed transmission line and construction activities in and under the Columbia River and Willamette River is work in or affecting navigable waters and thus requires a Department of the Army permit. Under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, a permit is required for the discharge of dredged or fill material into waters of the United States. The proposed transmission line construction activities would result in the discharge of dredged material and the discharge of fill material for the cable protection. These activities require a Department of the Army permit. Note that Section 10 and Section 404 authorities are evaluated in a single permit decision. The Corps will evaluate the proposed project to determine whether it would be contrary to the public interest to authorize the project. The Corps has been coordinating with Cascade on this project. The following are just a few of the activities in this coordination history. In 2024, the Corps received the information for a complete permit application and issued a public notice in July of 2024. The Corps requires a permit applicant to submit information for the Corps' evaluation, and that evaluation must proceed in a timely manner. Due to the time needed for Cascade to prepare information, the permit application was administratively withdrawn in March 2025. In November 2025, the Corps received preliminary 30% design drawings for the project. Based on the available information and the reasonably foreseeable significant effects from this project, in January 2026, the Corps determined its review requires the preparation of an environmental impact statement, or EIS. The 30% design drawings and the Corps' EIS determination are available on our website. The Corps' EIS determination begins the NEPA process, which starts with scoping. For some additional background, the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, is a procedural statute that requires federal agencies, such as the Corps, to make informed decisions and to consider the impacts of a project on the environment. An EIS is a public document that evaluates the effects of a project. The EIS provides an evaluation of the significant environmental impacts and informs decision makers and the public on reasonable alternatives. The EIS itself does not contain a decision on the project. The Corps will use the EIS along with public input in its decision making. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District is the lead federal agency responsible for the preparation of the EIS. The Corps is responsible for the content and scope of the EIS. The Corps is also responsible for establishing and managing a schedule to complete the EIS. Cooperating agencies on the preparation of an EIS may be any federal, state, or local agency or Native American tribe that has jurisdiction by law over the project or special expertise regarding the evaluation of the project. For the preparation of the EIS, the Corps has established the following as cooperating agencies: the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Oregon Department of Energy in regards to the Energy Facility Siting Council, the State of Washington Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs Reservation of Oregon, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon, and the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation. Cascade Renewable Transmission LLC will be using its consultant, HDR Engineering, to prepare the EIS. As commented earlier, the Corps, as the lead federal agency, oversees the preparation of the EIS and its contents. This is an overview of the EIS process. The process begins with a 30-day public scoping comment period. Based on input during scoping, the Corps will prepare and publish a draft EIS for public comment. The draft EIS comment period will be 45 days. The Corps will review comments and revise the draft EIS if needed, and then publish a final EIS. The Corps will then prepare a record of decision to document whether to authorize the project. The Corps has developed a 2-year schedule to complete the EIS process and to make a decision. The objective of the scoping process is to hear from you. We need your input to identify issues, alternatives, and potentially significant effects to consider in the EIS. You may also provide input on relevant information, studies, or analysis that should be considered or analyzed with respect to the proposed project. The Corps will evaluate numerous public interest review factors. The Corps will also evaluate the project for compliance with certain federal laws, such as the Endangered Species Act and the National Historic Preservation Act. Through the scoping process, your comments will be used to identify the potentially significant issues in which to focus the evaluation in the EIS. The scoping process is also used to identify insignificant issues that can be de-emphasized so that the EIS can analyze those issues of genuine concern. Scoping comments should be as specific as possible. Please focus your comments on those issues you believe should be addressed in the EIS. Commenting that you are in favor or opposed to the project alone is an incomplete comment. Instead, we want to hear the specific issues, both beneficial or adverse, that you think should be considered in the EIS. In regards to the application for a Department of the Army permit, the decision to issue a permit will be based on an evaluation of the probable impacts of the project on the public interest. That decision will reflect the national concern for both protection and utilization of important resources. The benefits, which reasonably may be expected to accrue from the proposed project, must be balanced against its reasonably foreseeable detriments. Public participation is an important aspect of the NEPA process. Please visit our website for information on the project and on the EIS process, and to access notices and the draft EIS when it becomes available. The Corps website address for the EIS is www.nwp.usace.army.mil/CRT. The preferred method for submitting comments is by email. Comments can be submitted by email to the following address: crt_eis@usace.army.mil. You may also submit comments by mail to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Portland District. Attention Joe Brock for the CRT project. Post Office Box 2946, Portland, Oregon, 97208-2946. The Corps will consider all comments received. To insert consideration, please submit comments by February 4th, 2026. You may also submit an email to be added to our distribution list related to the EIS. Anyone that submits comments will be added to the distribution list for future announcements. In summary, the Corps of Engineers, Portland District, has received a request from Cascade Renewable Transmission, LLC, for a Department of the Army permission and permit. The Corps will prepare an EIS to evaluate the proposed project. The first step for the EIS is the public scoping process to inform the issues to be evaluated in the EIS. The Corps will then prepare and publish a draft EIS for comment. Thank you for your participation in this process. As the applicant, Cascade Renewable Transmission, LLC, will now provide a short presentation. Please note the views or opinions provided by Cascade are not representative of the Corps. The Corps will complete an independent evaluation of the proposed project. Following the presentation from Cascade, We will accept oral scoping comments.
Thanks for the opportunity to present information about the Cascade Transmission Project. My name is Chris Hocker, representing the applicant, Cascade Renewable Transmission, LLC. In this brief presentation, I'll be providing information about the applicant, a general project description, the reasons for developing the project, and a description of how the construction and installation is accomplished. Who is Cascade Renewable Transmission, the applicant? We are a company formed by a team of private companies to support the development of the Cascade project, technically and financially. Independent transmission companies such as ourselves are different from utilities and government agencies that have traditionally built transmission. But in recent years, independent transmission companies have successfully done so in many parts of the U.S. Members of the applicant's development team include PowerBridge, the company I work for, which is responsible for 2 HVDC underwater and underground transmission facilities between New Jersey and New York, with a combined capacity of 1,320 megawatts. One of our partners, Sun2O, is a developer of renewable generation that several years ago concluded that despite the potential for large-scale wind and solar east of the Cascades, much more east-west transmission to reach western load centers would be needed before most of these resources could be successfully built. Another partner, NextEra Energy Transmission, is part of one of the largest utility and energy resource companies in the U.S., with assets that include the Transbay Cable project that includes a power cable under San Francisco Bay. The Cascade Transmission Project is a proposed new electric power transmission line that will carry 1,100 megawatts of electricity from generating sources east of the Cascade Mountains to energy load centers west of the Cascades. The line will be entirely underwater and buried underground. It will run for approximately 100 miles between the existing Big Eddy substation in the Dalles, Oregon, which is part of the BPA Star Complex, and the existing Portland General Electric Harborton substation in West Portland. About 80 miles of the line will be buried beneath the bottom of the Columbia River, shown as the green line, and the remaining portions will be buried underground, shown as the yellow lines. As shown on this slide, about an 8-mile underground segment will bypass the Bonneville Dam in Skamania County, Washington. It will be entirely buried underground along existing public rights-of-way, mostly along State Route 14. The line will transition between the river and the land using horizontal directional drill, or HDD technology. These are shown as the purple lines. HDD is widely used throughout the world for infrastructure such as cables and pipelines. The HDD transitions will be 40 to 50 feet deep below sensitive shoreline areas. Long segments of conduit will be installed inside the HDD paths to allow the transmission cable to be pulled through the conduit. The underground portions of the line will be buried using standard trenching technology in a trench of about 4 feet deep and 3 feet wide. Once installed, the trenches will be backfilled and there will be no visible signs of the cable once construction is finished. Similar underground installation will take place in 2 locations in Oregon, in the Dalles, shown in the figure on the right, and in the Rivergate industrial area of Portland, which is shown on the left-hand figure. The line will be buried along public rights-of-way. Transitions between the river and the land will be done with HDD. To reach the Harborton substation in Portland, the line will be installed approximately 40 feet below the bed of the Willamette River using HDD. The line will use high voltage direct current, or HVDC technology. Most of the transmission system in the U.S., including the lines that serve residential, commercial, and industrial customers, use alternating current, or AC technology. HVDC technology is needed for the line to run long distances underwater, but it also has the advantage of being entirely controllable, so that a DC line like Cascade can be operated to support the surrounding power grid. In order for the Cascade line to help serve the grid, it needs converter stations at each end of the line. A converter station in the Dalles will be built near the Big Eddy substation to convert AC power into DC power before entering the river. At the western end, another converter station will be built in the Rivergate industrial area to convert DC back into AC before interconnecting with the grid at the Harborton substation. The photo shown here is of a converter station in San Francisco, California for the Transbay cable, which was built in 2010. Transbay is similar to the Cascade project in that it includes an underwater HVDC cable running about 50 miles below San Francisco Bay, and 2 converter stations at each end. The converter stations are similar to a typical electric substation and require about 5 acres of land each. What is the rationale for this project? Why are we proposing to build it? There are 2 main reasons. One is that both Oregon and Washington have passed legislation that requires a transition to clean energy sources by certain milestone dates. These resources, such as wind, solar, and geothermal, can only be developed on a large scale east of the Cascades, including states beyond Oregon and Washington, where there are low populations, more available land, and more favorable weather for wind and sunshine. The second reason is simply the growth in electricity demand in the Pacific Northwest, which translates into thousands of megawatts of new energy capacity needed to meet the demand. Today, the transmission system over the Cascades to the major load centers is already seriously constrained. Given the projected growth in energy demand, these constraints will only get worse in the absence of new east-west transmission. The need for new transmission to meet clean energy goals and meet growing demand on the west side of the Cascades has now been widely recognized in the press and among policymakers in both states. We see the Cascade project as part of the solution to the region's energy needs, one that helps meet growing demand and clean energy goals, using well-established technology for both construction and operation, while at the same time minimizing visual impacts and risks from wildfires and adverse weather events. How will the cable be installed underwater? A bundle of 2 cables, totaling 12 inches in diameter, is sufficient to transmit 1,100 megawatts of energy. The photo on the left shows the underwater cable bundle for the Neptune transmission project being fed off the back of a barge. The Neptune project, which was developed by PowerBridge, runs about 65 miles underwater and underground between New Jersey and New York. PowerBridge also developed an underwater and underground project, Hudson Transmission, that is buried in the Hudson River and supplies 660 megawatts of energy into New York City. As shown in the figure on the right, the cable bundle is lowered from a barge or ship into a machine called a hydroplow or jet plow on the bottom of the river. The surface vessel slowly pulls the hydroplow while high-pressure water jets in the plow blade create a 24-inch trench in the riverbed sediment. This fluidizes the sediment, allowing the cable bundle to be laid into the trench. Most of the fluidized sediment then settles back into the trench as the plow moves along. The installation vessel moves slowly at a pace of about a mile or mile and a half per day. The cable will be buried in accordance with the requirements of the Army Corps of Engineers, which we expect will average at least 10 feet below the sediment. We will conform the schedule of installation to work windows during the winter months, which are required to avoid fish migration and spawning seasons. We expect that it will take 2 winter campaigns to install the Cascade cable bundle, one above the Bonneville Dam and one below. This slide illustrates the fact that while this type of project is unusual in the Pacific Northwest, they have been built and operated successfully in other parts of the United States and throughout the world. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to provide this overview of the Cascade project, and we encourage you to learn more about it by visiting our project website and directing any questions you may have to us at any time. We'll be happy to respond.
This concludes the presentations on the EIS process and on the proposed project. The Corps included a presentation by Cascade as a project proponent. As a reminder, the Corps does not endorse the views or opinions presented by Cascade. The Corps will complete an independent evaluation of the proposed project. As discussed, we are seeking your comments as part of the scoping process for the EIS. To ensure consideration, please submit scoping comments by February 4th, 2026. The preferred way to submit comments is by email. You may submit comments by email to crt_EIS@usace.army.mil. You may also submit comments by mail to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Portland District, attention Joe Brock for the CRT project, Post Office Box 2946, Portland, Oregon 97208-2946. We will also accept oral comments at the virtual scoping meetings. We will now begin the portion of the meeting to accept oral comments. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to comment. Please note, written comments and oral comments will be considered equally. To manage the logistics of the virtual meetings, we provided the opportunity to pre-register to speak. If you pre-register to speak and you are in attendance online, please click the raise hand icon in Teams. Anyone in attendance may also request to speak and provide comments. If you would like to speak, please click the raise hand icon in Teams. If you joined today's meeting by phone and you'd like to speak and provide comments, please dial *5 to virtually raise your hand. If during the meeting you decide you would no longer like to speak, you can click the raise hand icon again to lower your hand, or for those on the phone, you can dial *5 again to lower your hand. If you are called down and you do not wish to speak, you can simply say pass and we will move on to the next participant. Note, we will only accept one request per person to speak during this meeting. Please listen for your name to be announced, and you will be directed to unmute your microphone. After unmuting, you can quickly check to ensure that we can hear you. For our record, please begin by stating and spelling your first name and last name. For example, John Smith, John Smith. If you are commenting behalf of an organization, please state the name of the organization. The timer will start when you begin to provide your comments. Please focus your scoping comments on those issues that you believe should be evaluated in the EIS. As a public meeting, the use of profanity, personal attacks, or inappropriate language will not be tolerated. Anyone not following these guidelines will be muted, and we'll move on to the next participant. Thank you for your participation, and we look forward to your comments. Okay, I'm seeing a few hands raised that want to speak and provide comments. Our first speaker will be Judy Oatman. Please unmute yourself and you can begin providing your comments. Please start by stating and spelling your name and then provide your comments.
Thank you. My name is Judy, Judy Oatman, Oatman. Thank you for this opportunity to be heard. I've been hearing about this transmission line and just looking at the Columbia River in its current stand in the endangered state that it's in, knowing that this is kind of a project that's basically a test project, and I'm with the Nez Perce. I'm a Nez Perce tribal member. I'm also a member of the Fish and Wildlife Commission on the Nez Perce Reservation, which also puts me on the board with as a commissioner for the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission. So we've been educated a lot about these and about the dangers of data centers, transmission lines, but just because that river is so valuable and so protected and it's been so abused in the past, I just would like for the consideration for that permit to be denied based on it's just too unknown and too dangerous. We don't even know what, the transmission lines, my question is, do those transmission lines have something in the chemicals that could be dangerous to the river and to the overall environment? So I would take that into consideration and then just what is it going to do to the fish and the energy in there? It's, we feel energy when we're out here as human beings if we're near transmission lines and stuff. So if we feel that energy, the fish and the fish in there are going to feel it too. And so I would just in my comments are that I hope that this permit is not allowed. In listening to the presenter, it seems like a lot of it is already predetermined and it's like, here's what we're going to do. It's not like, if this permit is approved, this is what we want to do. And I think that the communities need to know we still have options and this is not a done deal, because when something is forced down us, it makes it harder. There's just too much unknowns. And I think this transmission line is very dangerous. And there's the tribes that are over there on that area are already fighting enough for the environment, for the cultural survival, the fish, the wildlife, all of it. So again, that's my comments, and I appreciate the opportunity to be heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Yvonne Colfax. You can go ahead and unmute yourself. Please state and spell your name and you can provide your comment. So we're calling for Yvonne Colfax. You can unmute yourself and provide your comments. Well, we're going to leave that hand up and we'll come back. So our next speaker is Deborah Whitefoot. You can unmute yourself. Please state and spell your name and provide your comments.
Hello, my name is Deborah Whitefoot. The first name is D-E-B-R-A, last name Whitefoot, W-H-I-T-E-F-O-O-T. Thank you for the opportunity to make comments today to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'm a citizen of the Yakama Nation. I'm also a lifelong food gatherer and come from a fisher family from Celilo, Oregon. And my grandparents were fishers there. And the comments I want to make is that I don't think there have been enough studies to find out the impacts of what this will be to the river, Columbia River, and the fish populations and other life forms that live in the Columbia River. From my experience, the river is already at a high temperature, and any more heat in that river is going to kill the salmon and all other life in the forms in the river. This year, there were salmon that had died in the river because of the heat. And what is unknown is a couple of things. One, this is the Columbia River should not be a test ground for these kind of things. And then two, one thing that cannot be controlled is the climate. We do not know the impact of how the climate will affect the river in the temperature of the river. That's an unknown, and that's nothing anyone can control. So the additional heat and electromagnetic waves that will be emitted under the ground are going to cause the river temperature to rise. We already have an algae problem, algae blooms when the temperature rises. So I just based on that alone, I would ask that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers deny this permit. That is my intent for being here, is to ask you that. Also, the disturbance of placing the cable into the ground. And we already have sediment in a lot of areas that have not been addressed. There has not been mitigation completed for those projects where there's already sediment in the river, which is also slowing the water down making it warmer. So, and so that will be like a cumulative impact on the river with the other things that are impacting the Columbia River and the fish species and other life forms that live on the river, which in the long run will also be detrimental to our cultural ways of gathering salmon, which is a treaty protected right. Also, if the salmon goes away, that will be a harsh economic impact on the gorge overall. So I think there may be other ways to transmit electricity or data or whatever they're transmitting. There may be another way to do that, and I'd like to see that done, see the results of that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your comments. I'm going to try to see if Yvonne Colfax, if you've gotten the microphone figured out. So Yvonne, you can unmute yourself and you can provide us your comments. Okay, I'm going to lower your hand for now for Yvonne. If you would like to provide comments, go ahead and click the raise hand button. We'll see if we can get your audio working. So at this time, if If you're online, you can click the raise your hand button and we'll call on you to provide comments. If you're calling on just by the phone, you can press *5 and that will virtually raise your hand. We'll be able to see that you want to provide comments. So right now, I'm not showing, oh, there's one additional one. Request for speaker. So Thomas Gordon, if you'd like to unmute and state and spell your name and provide your comments.
Hi, this is Diana Gordon, and Thomas will submit his comments later. Diana is Diana, Gordon, Gordon, and I'm not with any organization, but the need for a way to transmit electricity across the Cascades is clear, and so I'm very interested in possible solutions to this problem. I have concern, however, about the amount of pollutants that will be stirred up during construction with the hydroplow. The Columbia River has been used for shipping for a very long time, and industry has located along its banks as well. The result is a mixture of toxic chemicals in the sediments, among them mercury, DDT, PCBs, arsenic, you know them all, I'm sure, as well as PAHs. The currents under the Columbia can be very strong. I fear that sediments will be swept downstream, having an impact on water quality and turbidity, and thus on many kinds of fish, especially salmon and lamprey. When I looked on the Army website, it mentioned the construction of 4 cofferdams using a clamshell dredge. I may not understand this completely, but it sounds as though the dredge will scoop up many cubic yards of sediment and redeposit it when that section of pipe is completed. This has got to be really disruptive to the areas inside the dams, which seems rather large to me. 300 feet by 70, that just seems big. And it will have an impact on that area and the benthic dwellers that live there as well as the public. When the dredged material is redeposited, the pollution and turbidity will again be a problem. I hope the EIS will explain all this. Also, the website mentioned that in places where the pipe is only 5 feet underwater, piles of rocks will be deposited on top to protect it. I'm wondering about their effect on the river currents, water access and safety, and fishing rights. Many people use the Columbia for recreation, such as fishing, boarding, swimming, and boating, and we don't want to do anything to degrade it further. Even more important, we certainly owe it to the folks holding the treaty rights to fish in this river and have fished here for centuries to keep it as healthy as we possibly can. I think there are many questions to be resolved in this approach of putting a pipeline in the river, and I'm not sure that it's a viable solution to the problem of energy transmission here. Thank you very much.
So I have a phone number ending 4946 that has their hand up to speak. So for phone number 4946, you can press *6 to unmute yourself and provide comments.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You could state and spell your name.
I could not get my audio to work on my computer, so I had to call in by phone. Good afternoon. My name is Yvonne Colfax, YVONNE-COLFAX. I am an enrolled member of the Yakima Nation. I am here to urge the Corps of Engineers and developers to hold meaningful consultation with my tribal leaders and cultural resources of the Yakima Nation. I have some experience in background work and cultural resources. The Corps of Engineers awarded me a contract, BACW 5792M 2633, in 1993. They were seeking compliance with Native American Graves Protection Repatriation Act. My contract was to explore that with the like museums that hold their findings. The Native Graves Protection Act 101-601 requires federal agencies to coordinate repatriation and future retrievals of artifacts and potential human remains. And this was part of the mitigation that happened under Section 106 of the NHPA in 1966 and amendments that followed. Lewis and Clark had made a journey here and documented their passage on the Columbia River. And so there's quite a history that shows that migration happened, later military exploration, and early settlers came. In the Depression, there was a prediction of power shortage at that time, and we're doing it again. There's a power shortage, so we're proposing something new. The Corps of Engineers contracted out to do investigations, to begin this development. University of Idaho, Washington, University of Oregon, Oregon State University, and Forest Service. And these researchers made a summary of geology, physiography, soils, climate, flora, fauna, and cultural resources. A few of these reports document complex bedrock topography in the Columbia Canyon floor and overlying dynamic sedimentary environments with a wide variety of sedimentary deposits. So meaningful consultation is needed for this Cascade Renewable Transmission Line. This is going to affect the treaty tribes and wreak havoc with major impacts to our cultural sites. The Corps of Engineers and federal agencies are well aware of the trust responsibilities to the tribes. I thank you. So please evaluate my comments, and I can submit written comments later. This is all I have for now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your comment. So up next, I show Andrew. So Andrew, if you could unmute yourself and state and spell your first and last name and provide your comments. I'm showing Andrew Z. You have your hand up. If you'd like to speak, we're ready for you. You can unmute and provide your comments. Well, we're not hearing from Andrew, but we have more time in the meeting, so if others would like to speak, please use the raise hand icon in Teams, or if you're on the phone, just press *5, and that'll virtually raise your hand, and we'll be able to call on you. I'm going to go back to Andrew and see if you can get your audio to work. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and lower your hand and we can come back to you. So we're not showing any raised hands to speak. We're going to go ahead and keep the meeting open for the scheduled time period. So if anyone comes in late, or if you would like to speak, you can always raise your hand, or again, if you're online or on the phone, just press *5 and that'll raise your hand on our screen. So again, if you want to speak, or for those that enter late, we'll stay online here and we'll keep this open. I see an additional hand up, so I think we'll call on someone to speak. I'm showing Craig. You can go ahead and
Yes.
unmute, yep, and provide your comments.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Craig, C-R-A-I-G, Johnson, J-O-H-N-S-O-N. I'm concerned about the impacts to the river by the dredging operations that could potentially dredge up toxic chemicals. As we know that the Bonneville Dam and around the island, there's a lot of toxicity in the groundwater or in the ground there. And by dredging the Columbia River, we're potentially opening up a lot of potential for toxic chemicals, not to just mention also lamprey juveniles. I'm concerned about the lamprey, as well as ensuring that the Army Corps consults with not only the 4 lower Columbia River Treaty tribes, but additional tribes that are upstream as well, including some tribes in Washington. So I always think, that the consultation part is probably the most important component, but also understanding that the treaty rights and what the potential effects could be to those treaty rights during the operation or planning or construction of this power line down the middle of the river. I also strongly encourage you to look at other alternatives, including possibly a land power line that could go under the ground as well, perhaps following other areas that have been impacted. But again, I also lay caution to the fact of cultural resources along the river there, because many of the tribes have made their home right along that river, if not possibly just areas of cultural importance. So with that, I also just want to just kind of back up the concerns about NAGPRA, Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, concerns about possible human remains that could be dredged up in the river. Things have gotten moved around for many years, and just because you're not going on land or impacting something directly, such as a site, it's the unknown that I'm concerned about. So I would appreciate it. I guess, they would be planning into using LIDAR or some sort of radar, but that still doesn't always capture everything. So anyhow, thank you for allowing me to comment, and I will go to mute. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. I've heard a couple of people join as we've continued with the meeting. So we're in the public comment section. If anyone would like to speak in Teams, you can click the raise your hand button, or if you're on the phone, you can press *5, and we'll keep track of anyone that wants to speak. Again, we'll keep the meeting open, and we'll keep track of anyone that wants to speak until the close of the meeting. I see a hand raised to speak. Looks like Paul Seleskin. You can unmute yourself in Teams on the top bar. Just click the mic button to unmute. If you could state and spell your name and provide your comment.
Yeah, Brian Paul Saluskin, Brian Paulsaluskin, Yakima Nation. Yeah, the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project, it has the potential to significantly affect the Yakima Nation's treaty reserve rights and the Columbia River resources upon which those rights depend. The EIS must fully analyze, disclose, and avoid that would diminish the Yakama Nation's treaty ability to exercise those treaty rights of 1855 right now and for future generations. Failure to do so would be inconsistent with NEPA and the federal trust responsibility and the supreme law of the land. You know, when you talk about the dredging of the substrate of the Columbia River, that's the unknown. You know, we don't know, you know, if there's 10 feet of sediment or that you can dredge down into, or where you went and run into like just the hard rock and stuff, and that cable is just going to sit on the bedrock and in the substrate. We have fishermen that fish with drift nets, and you're putting something that could potentially get caught up within those nets, or just other ways of our treaty fishermen and how they fish in that area. The proposed project would also cross and occur or beneath the Columbia River, associated with approximately River Mile 190 to River Mile 106 area that lies squarely Yakama Nation usual and accustomed fishing areas and treaty protected use zones. The EIS must include a standalone, robust treaty rights analysis and not treaty impacts with general environmental or social economic sanctions. At the minimum, the EIS must analyze impacts to the reserved fishing rights. But also, what was mentioned, when these dams were built, there was a lot of flooding that occurred, and it did flood, some of the villages of the Yakama Nation along the river, and you could be, dredging up those remains as well is a big concern. So with that, I just wanted to make those comments and appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your comment. I see we have a hand raised to speak. Rose Quilt, you can go to the top of your screen there and click the mic button to unmute. Please state and spell your name and provide your comments.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, so my name is Rose Mary Lashawat Buzzard Quilt. I am an enrolled member of the Yakama Nation. My enrollment number is 7571. My last name is spelled Quilt. So I am joining this call and just want to remind everybody who's hosting this about Article 3 in our treaty rights, which is the exclusive right of taking fish in all streams where running through or bordering said reservation is further secured to said confederated tribes and bands of Indians, as also the right of taking fish at all usual and accustomed places in common with the citizens of the territory, and of erecting temporary buildings for curing them. And then it goes into our hunting roots and berries and other rights. So that is one of the first reminders regarding this proposed project, and that this would violate our Treaty of 1855, which has the same, same power as, even, we go back to the Constitution and other things, but this was ratified back in 1855. So again, just reminding everybody about that. And in addition, we have a case, the Bolt decision, which was an affirmation of our treaty rights of us to fish in our accustomed places, ensuring that we can continue to access those traditional fishing places and practices among our people, that there's an allocation of fishing rights, and a recognition of our tribe's sovereignty. So this proposed project seriously would endanger our river, our ecosystems, and our cultural ways of living, and for our future. Our children and our families rely on this fish and on these waters for for our future. So I oppose this and just want to make that noted. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I'm showing Dina Horton. So your mic is enabled. You could unmute yourself and you can provide your comments.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Please state and spell your name and then you can give us your comments. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Dina Horton, DENA HORTON. I'm with the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association, and we have some significant challenges and concerns related to the navigation impacts and the potential for disrupting billions of dollars in commerce, particularly if this project goes to construction. We do have some other comments that we will submit written. However, we're very concerned about impacts to our large ties and to your transportation, as well as impacts to sediment and, stirring up sediments along the shoreline that could then end up in the navigation channel, causing increased cost and impacts to navigation and require additional dredging. Those are concerns that we will discuss more fully in our comment letter, but did want to say thank you for the opportunity to raise the concerns about navigation and transportation on the waterway. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. I'm showing Shanika Jim with a hand up. So your mic is enabled. If you go to the top right and click the mic button, and go ahead and state and spell your name and provide your comment.
Hello, my name is Shanita Jim, spelled SHAWNITA, last name JIM. I would just like to thank everyone for allowing their time to be here and for those that shared their comments. I, as a community member that resides on the Yakama Nation, do not agree with this project. I feel like it will disturb the natural habitats within the water for our fish, the natural embodies that live there. I don't think this will benefit anyone in the future down the road, whether it is transporting power from one side to another. I do not agree, and I just wanted to voice that. Thank you very much. That is all.
Yes, thank you for your comment. It's now 3 p.m. and this is the conclusion of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers public scoping meeting on the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project. Thank you for everyone's attendance and participation. As a reminder, you can always submit your comments in writing, either via email or by regular mail. So again, thank you for attendance, and we look forward to you sending us your comments.